Since we're talking about it, we continue to pray for our soldiers and our hostages. Hashem's help they return miraculously and unharmed, and they be completely and fully successful. We are in the middle of Taf Ayin Beis of the Alter Shulchan Aruch, chapter 472. We're holding Halacha 7. As I mentioned, Halacha 7 is Halacha 2 in the original Shulchan Aruch, which really begins the laws of reclining, although we already discussed some of that with regard to the mourner. This paragraph that we're about to read, Halacha 7, and the Rebbe speaks about, as I mentioned, we're going to look at the God willing when we finish the Alter Shulchan Aruch. We're going to look at some of the Rebbe's talk where he discusses the mitzvah of Haseba, the mitzvah of reclining, and the nature of that mitzvah. And there's another related talk. Is it connected? It's the same one. The Rebbe speaks about the paragraph we're about to read. And the Rebbe speaks about the specific language used by the Alter Rebbe in this paragraph. It reads as follows. A person should prepare the place where he sits, that he be able to recline in a manner that reflects his freedom. Right? In the way that kings and noblemen would eat. So the phrasing here is not one is required to recline tonight, but rather one should prepare their place so that when the time comes, they can recline. So it's not the Alter Rebbe's phrasing. This comes from the Shulchan Aruch as well. But Yachin Makam Mashaveh should prepare his place to recline. It comes from earlier sources. It's not the Alter Rebbe's innovation. Now, presumably, this can be extracted from the Mishnah. But the Gemara doesn't say anything like this. The Gemara doesn't say you should prepare your place to recline. The Gemara just says when you should recline, right? Yeah, the Gemara just said recline during matzah, recline during the wine. You don't have to recline during maror. It doesn't talk about preparing a place. And presumably, well, first of all, it's a technicality. If you have to recline, you have to prepare a place. But still, nonetheless, the halacha makes it like part of the requirement of setting your table. You set a table with a place that you can recline, right? That was like the flow. Before Yom Tov starts, make sure your place is set so that you can start the Seder right away. Make sure your table is set beautifully with all kinds of gold and silver on the table, which we spoke about last week. And then it continues. And make sure you have a place set that you can recline later. So presumably, the reason this is extracted from the Mishnah is because where did the Mishnah tell us about the law of reclining? We haven't learned in the Gemara and Mishnah yet the laws of the Seder night. We're learning the laws of Erev Pesach, where it talks about don't eat in the evening because you want to build up an appetite. Right. And there too it says, by the way, even if you're a poor person, don't eat until you recline. Meaning the Mishnah positions the law of reclining in its description of your preparation to Erev Pesach.
Why should that be a mitzvah? I thought a mitzvah was a good deed. Reclining is...
A mitzvah is a commandment from Hashem, nothing to do with good deed. Certainly all of Hashem's commandments are good deeds, but mitzvahs are not good deeds. Mitzvahs are commandments from Hashem. A person's a very moral, good person without putting on tefillin. Tefillin's a mitzvah, right? So it's a mitzvah to recline, to demonstrate our freedom. Yeah. So presumably because the Gemara Mishnah positions it in its discussion of Erev Yom Tif, therefore the halacha can understand that there's actually the requirement that you prepare your place that way. Right? Which is why it's phrased here. He could take a... Oh, okay. That's what the Gemara, the halacha rephrases that. The should prepare his place so that it can recline. That's number one. Number two, another thing that's extracted from here, which again we'll get to when we see more of the Rebbe's talk, is that the mitzvah of reclining is a general mitzvah for the whole night, not attached to specific times during the night. Because the Gemara phrases it, and for the halacha phrases it too, before you even start your Seder, make sure your place is set to recline. In other words, set your table to begin with, that it demonstrates your freedom, including how you're going to sit. Right? So it's not a mitzvah of the specific times. Like, the mitzvah of matzah has many requirements. You have to eat a certain amount. You have to eat it in a certain amount of time. You have to make certain brachas. And you also have to recline. No, that's true. But the mitzvah of reclining is much more than that. The mitzvah of reclining is tonight you got to demonstrate your freedom. The whole night. And therefore the mitzvah begins Erev Yom Tov. Prepare your place in such a way that you have a place to recline. That's the kind of table you should be setting. Following? Follow that?
You know
But what am I missing? What?
you know the Shabbos Table Companion, that book? On the front cover of it, there's lots of armchairs, and there's like pillows and like blankets or something. And I always what kind of, and it says that's actually a Pesach table. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
In the old days.
Okay, but we're following what I'm trying to say here about that it being a whole night as opposed to an element of the matzah.
The whole night is supposed to be?
So again, what's the mitzvah of reclining? Someone tell it to me, define it to me.
Why you have the matzah or
Okay, so you did described reclining as not an independent mitzvah, but a requirement in the way you fulfill matzah.
oh, okay.
That's how you just defined it, right?
Right.
But what did he just say here? Didn't talk about matzah. He said you're setting your table. Set it with reclining. So now define for the mitzvah of reclining.
It's either one or the other or a combination of both.
Taken from this paragraph, how would you conclude?
The whole thing.
No,
That the mitzvah is to be a reclining night.
Yeah.
It so happens you do it during matzah.
Separate mitzvah.
Atazai.
Only a free human being.
Atazai. Because exactly. There's no mention of the word matzah here. It's how you set your table. To begin with, your table should be set in a freedom manner,
So this
including
is-
a place to
this is
recline.
different than the Mishnah.
It is from the Mishnah. Because where did the Mishnah tell you to recline?
Or is it from the Gemara?
Where did the Gemara tell you? Okay, the Gemara told you to recline, but where did the Mishnah put the halacha of reclining? Have we learned any halachas in the Gemara yet of the Seder?
No.
Which halachas have we been learning?
You mentioned Erev Pesach.
We've been learning about Erev Pesach. Build up your appetite. And included in that is make sure you got a reclining space. It's part of preparing for your demonstration of freedom. A, make sure you have an appetite. That was the first halacha we learned. And then number two, the Mishnah told us, make sure that even if you're a poor person, you can recline. It's all generalistic statements about the preparation for the Seder. We haven't got to the Seder yet.
Yeah.
All indicating, I think Shulchan Aruch puts it here, not when you eat your matzah recline, but when you set your table, make sure you got a place that you can recline. Following?
Yeah.
What? What are we missing?
To be a mitzvah is, and a mitzvah is.
No. You're injecting your definition of mitzvah into the Shulchan Aruch. Do it the other way around. Take what the Shulchan Aruch says and put it into you. What are we missing?
I don't eat like this.
Okay, that's
I'm not comfortable with this.
that's your issue. Well, actually, that's what the Shulchan Aruch says.
It's like coffee with the king do.
That's what the Shulchan Aruch is saying. Set your table in such a way that you're comfortable. So if you got to get yourself an armchair, get yourself an armchair. You got to get yourself those pillows, get yourself those pillows. That's the Shulchan Aruch telling you.
Comfortable with this.
So then set it up in a way that you are.
I'm not gonna eat like this.
So that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Set up your table in a way that you're comfortable and showing your freedom by reclining. So that's exactly what the Shulchan Aruch says. Before the say, no, but we learned the Shulchan Aruch can't do that. Okay, let's go back there. Okay,
Because you could choke if you lean to the wrong side.
all right. Let's learn it again. The Yachin, again, halacha 7. The Yachin mikayim shavoy. You should set your place, prepare your place. Sheyeshe beheseba. Your place should be set in such a way that you're capable of reclining. So if you're uncomfortable when you're reclining, you mean you didn't set your table properly before Yom Tov. And you got to set your table properly before Yom Tov in such a way that you can recline. Derech edus, in such a way that it reflects your freedom. Kederech shemalachim agdelim oichlim, in the same way that kings and noblemen eat. Now he explains. Lafi, this is because, why are we doing this? Shebachol deredar, in every generation, chayav adam, a person is obligated lahareses atzmai, to present himself, to show himself, kehiluhu ata yotzim mishibud mitzrayim. That is, if now he left the slavery of Egypt. So where did the obligation to recline come from? What did we just read? Where does it come from, Nu? Let's read it again. Because in every generation, each and every person is supposed to demonstrate themselves as if he now left Egypt. So where does the mitzvah of reclining come from? What did we just read? Nu?
From Egypt, from Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Let's read it again. Because in every generation, a person is supposed to present himself as if he now left Egypt. Where does the mitzvah of reclining come from? From your requirement to demonstrate your freedom. No, but we just finished reading.
Yeah.
Doesn't come from Egypt because in every generation it's first supposed to see himself as if he left Egypt. So where does reclining come from? Your obligation to demonstrate that you just left.
Right.
Not because you're supposed to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah properly, not because you're supposed to fulfill the mitzvah of drinking wine properly, but because you're obligated at your night to demonstrate your freedom.
Wow.
And as part of that,
Different thing.
completely independent of anything else.
Yeah.
And therefore your table's got to be set beautifully. Your table should be set with a reclining spot.
A human being who's on the run
Follow?
can't recline. Human who's on the run, but a human being who finally realizes he has his freedom.
Now he can recline. Yeah. Now let's look carefully at the words. You've heard the song, and we know it from the Mishnah, the Gemara, that we didn't get to that part of the Mishnah yet. But this is actually an extrapolated quote from the Mishnah with a few subtle changes. The Mishnah later, Alan, you with me or not? You're still stuck on something else. Forget your comfort whether you like reclining. Learn the Shulchan Aruch. Forget your comfort.
We're gonna make sure you get a good armchair, a good pillow.
yeah. No, no, but I mean it's very important to learn what the Shulchan Aruch says. Forget whether you like it or not. First learn what it
I know
says.
what it says.
Okay, so then that's it. How you figure it out, we'll get to later. But let's first learn what it says here, yeah? Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch says, I'm sorry, the Mishnah says, we all know the song and we actually quote this Mishnah in our Seder. When we read the Haggadah, we quote this Mishnah. B'chol davadar, chayav adam, lirois etz atzmai kilu yatzim mitzrayim. In every generation, a person, I'm not reading from the text here. This is from the Mishnah. In every generation, a person is supposed to see himself as if he left Egypt. Look at the text of the Shulchan Aruch. What does it say? In every generation, a person is obligated to
Present himself.
Adam v'hara.
what's laharos? What does the word laharos mean?
Present himself.
That's not the same thing as the Mishnah, which says see yourself. Here it says present yourself. Very big difference. The Mishnah is talking about how you should look at yourself. And what does the Shulchan Aruch talk about? How people should see you. This is a change the Rambam makes, and the Alter Rebbe copies that. The Alter Rebbe makes a few other subtle changes. For example, he adds the word ata, as if you now left Egypt. He adds the word shibud from the slavery, as opposed to just saying, as if you now left Egypt, but as if you now left the slavery of Egypt. The Alter Rebbe adds that too. So there's a few different changes. But let's focus on this word laharos. You following?
Yeah.
The Shulchan Aruch says, the Mishnah says, see yourself, and the Alter Rebbe and Rambam write, present yourself, meaning people should see you, not just that you see yourself.
Was that learned out from the Gemara?
So let's see. The Rebbe discusses it in the Sichos.
Translation?
The Alter Rebbe misquoted the Mishnah by accident.
No, I'm saying it's English.
No, the Hebrew is correct, laharos.
I'm saying, so one says present and one says, what's the other?
Liros in Hebrew or laharos.
Oh, okay.
The change in English is because the change in the Hebrew.
Sorry.
Yeah, not because I'm
Okay. Sorry.
not going to make a fuss out of the translation,
Right.
as much as you love them.
Okay.
Right, but it's liros in the Mishnah versus laharos in the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
To see yourself versus present yourself, to show yourself. Laharos means to show yourself. The extra hey in that word.
Right.
So now let's look at footnote 30.
Sounds like when they left Egypt, they all went like this.
No, where'd you get that from?
Here, as if you yourself were a slave in Egypt and were redeemed and granted freedom.
Okay,
They should,
therefore, doesn't say anything about them leaning. Keep reading, you know. Therefore, keep going.
one must carry out all the practices of his night.
You have to demonstrate your freedom, not because they were leaning, they were running. But because you have to see yourself as if you left, you should behave as if you're free.
So why should you lean to the left?
Because that's how you demonstrate your freedom. You look at someone reclining, you show that he's free. He's not in a rush.
That's the way they
He's relaxed.
So when I divorce my wife, I'll have to look.
No, that's the way they used to eat.
Why are you talking about walking? I'm not talking about walking. Why are you throwing in walking there? Read it again slowly. What are you throwing in walking for? Only someone who's free eats and reclines. Otherwise, you eat quickly and scurry off.
This is how the sages used to eat. They
Reclining
used to
demonstrates that you're
recline.
not in a rush because you're free. You have nowhere to go. No one's chasing you.
That's how the royals
Yeah?
used to eat.
Okay. If you're uncomfortable at your chair, bring your couch to the table.
Roman times.
Yeah, that's where they got it from.
Okay, let's look at the footnote number 30, yeah?
I'm a good Jew, but I don't. See,
Okay, footnote 30, let's go. The Alter Rebbe's wording, lahares etz atzmoi, the Hebrew with the hey, lahares, which translates as to present himself, is taken from Rambam, Hilchos Chametz Matzah 7:6. Significantly, in their text of the Haggadah, meaning the Alter Rebbe has a text of the Haggadah which we use, and the Rambam has a text of the Haggadah. Both Rambam and the Alter Rebbe, in their Haggadah, use the phrase liros etz atzmoi, to see himself, which is the phrase found in the Mishnah, Psachim 116b. We haven't got there yet. Rather than the similar phrase used here where they say to present themselves. Follow what you said?
That's odd.
Oh, it is.
So not only do they change, first of all, they're changing the Mishnah in the halacha. But when it comes to quoting the Mishnah in the Haggadah, they keep it exactly as the Mishnah says, which is to see yourself.
Oh,
But when it comes to the halacha, they changed it from see yourself to present themselves.
in terms of application.
That's right.
So
This
it-
leads one to wonder why, when discussing halacha, the Alter Rebbe and Rambam instruct us to present ourselves as if we left Egypt, while in the Haggadahs, both cite the Mishnah, which states that each person should see himself as if he
They're
left
just,
Egypt.
Yeah.
they're just reciting a literal translation, perhaps, in the Haftarah,
So let's see.
but they must follow with a practical
But
application.
they're-
See, for some reason, when it comes to the practical application, we changed it from see yourself to present yourself. Why? Yeah, let's see. Continue. In Lokutei Sichos, volume 12, page 39, going forward and onward, the Rebbe explains that the obligation of recalling the Exodus, the mitzvah right? We have a mitzvah every night of the Seder to retell the story of the Exodus. Right? What does retelling involve? A speaker and a listener. Recalling is the act of telling it to another. Right? Yes?
Mhm.
Yeah? Not read to yourself. Reading to yourself is not retelling. Right? For example, the Megillah, the obligation is not to tell it to someone else. To hear it, so tell it to yourself. Right? So we do it in public because it's beautiful to do mitzvahs in public. But there's no obligation to get someone to listen to you to read the Megillah. But the mitzvah to recall the story of the Exodus is to tell another. Right? Which is why you're supposed to have someone else there. Preferably children. Yes? Okay, so says the Rebbe, this mitzvah to recall the Exodus applies not only to the recitation of Haggadah, tell the story to everybody else at the table, but to all practices performed at the Pesach. All the actions done at the Seder are part and parcel of the mitzvah of retelling the story, which means every act we do involves an other I'm communicating something to. Following? So since the mitzvah of relating the story of the Exodus involves sharing with others, the manner in which a person performs all other Passover practices must demonstrate to others his personal experience of Exodus. Thus, each person must not only see himself as having left Egypt during the Exodus, but must also convey the feeling to others, i.e., present himself as having left Egypt during the Exodus. Follow?
Yes.
You follow that, Mayor, with me?
Catching up.
Follow the logic?
The first half. No, I didn't get the Kutei Sichos part.
Okay, so you got the question, not the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the answer. There's a mitzvah to retell the story of the Exodus.
Right.
That retelling, as I just explained, different than the Megillah, involves an other. Says the Rebbe, every mitzvah you do that night is part and parcel of fulfilling the mitzvah to retell the story. Which means every mitzvah you do is not just performing it for yourself, but retelling it to another.
Even a leaning, let's say.
Correct. And therefore, the reclining is not just that I see myself as having left Egypt, but I demonstrate to another, like I'm telling a story to my children.
Oh, wow.
So now, back to Alan.
Present.
You're uncomfortable with your reclining, too bad, but the person looking at you says, there's a free man. So even if you're uncomfortable, too bad, you have to demonstrate to others how you're reclining. That's part and parcel of the mitzvah. You should get comfortable and get yourself a nice, comfortable chair. And that's what he says here. Set your place. We're all talking about halachas before the Seder begins. So set your seat up in such a way that you're comfortable. But beyond that, there's a mitzvah that you demonstrate that freedom. And when your kids look at you, they should see, Zadie's reclining because he's free tonight.
They don't know that.
Well, they should. And you can tell them, look, we're reclining because we're free people. And that's see here? See what's happening? Follow?
Yeah.
It's a significant, sorry?
Evolving.
It's a significant change. The Alter was telling us that the obligation of your of you acting out free is not just that you yourself see yourself as free, but actually should be visible to those around the Seder.
Perception is so vital. The perception, the appearance of you have demonstrated freedom. Very interesting. They told us the other day that that's amazing. The story of Rebbe, the ultra Rebbe, had to live alone. How it was incredible that there was a bridge between generations. And the ultra Rebbe was able to see him reclining in
Yeah.
the Seder when he was sitting alone.
I'm sure he reclined when he was alone too. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, it's unbelievable because what we're doing also is we're not only reclining for the people who see us here, but the people from previous generations who are seeing us speak because of their graduation
Yes.
from.
So even a person's alone is obligated in all this because the behavior should be such a way that it's demonstrable, demonstrable. That's the right word.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, because to continue, Shenemar, as the verse reads.
Or
So again,
back to
back to the main text. The reason why you should set your table up in such a way that you're ready to recline, because in each and every generation, a person is obligated to demonstrate himself, to present himself, as if he now left the slavery of Egypt. It should be apparent in his behavior that he left Egypt today. Shenemar, as the verse reads, that you're supposed to tell your children, for this reason, because God took me out of Egypt. Which means the Torah obligates that each person is supposed to say to their children, Hashem took me out of Egypt. So I have to present myself that way. That I'm a person who just left Egypt. And of this God commands, remember that you were a slave. Not remember your ancestors were slaves. Remember you were. As if you yourself were in Egypt, and you've been redeemed and have come out emerged in freedom. Therefore, therefore, all the activity of tonight, to be such a way that it's opulent, it shows freedom. Everything, the way you eat, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you sing, everything's got to be demonstrated in freedom. And from there is born the mitzvah of reclining. In addition, as we're learning in Rebbe Sikha, to what you said, Meir, that in order to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah properly, you got to recline. But here it's being described as much bigger than that. Your entire night has to be freedom. Therefore, you recline. Because everything you do has to be shown as I'm a free man now. I've left Egypt today. Okay? Halacha ches.
very interesting. I think it's very fascinating because that's one thing that I think the poil we don't actually do just personally. Like we sing a song, Ben Yoshvin Ben Mesugin, but we don't actually do it because we never eaten leaning in our whole life. So tonight,
Today we have normal chairs, but in the old days you have to find. But Alan's right. This year we're going to make sure you have a armchair with extra pillows, so it'll be nice and comfy. If it doesn't work, Alan, we're going to slip your couch to the table.
Yeah.
Just make sure Karen's going to be okay with all the crumbs.
Armchairs are those.
Sorry?
We'll get you a very good idea.
Okay, yeah.
You don't really need the whole night.
Right. So that's correct. So that's a funny
I
thing.
mean, even
Much-
though
Practically speaking,
you could,
you can recline whatever you want. But the point is, we softened out there, but we softened the Haggadah that Deborah writes that it's our custom not to lean during the meal.
right,
Others do, because as he says here, everything's got to be freedom.
right.
So there are those who lean during soup, during fish, I mentioned Deborah's father who leaned when he had a cigarette
Right.
at the Seder.
If you don't
table.
really like
The table, in those days in the 30s, everybody smoked, right? So he would lean to the left when he had a cigarette. The point, we only do it during these times. But nonetheless, we should be aware that when we lean during matzah and wine, it's not just simply because matzah and wine represent freedom.
Right.
But this leaning is a part of our general attitude of the night. It just so happens it's born out during these moments. But it shouldn't be exclusive to these moments. It's part of our
Right,
general
you
outlook.
shouldn't see it limited to only those moments.
Correct.
even
So
though
why
we
is
don't
it?
practice-
Sorry?
Why is it?
Okay, we're going to learn in the Sikha why that is. But the end is that when we do it at these moments, it should be like it's a manifestation of our general attitude, even though it happens to be specifically manifest in certain times. But it's not because of those times. It's a manifest of our general attitude of the night. Yeah. So it's a mindset we should be in. At the point. Okay. Then he continues, "V'ani, a poor person, she'ein lo yikarim l'ksasais l'hasav alei." He doesn't have cushions and pillows and blankets to lean on. Okay. The Kabbalah, nonetheless, yeshiv ala safsal, he should sit on the bench. V'loya ala karka kashar yimei sashana, not on the floor as he would throughout the rest of the year. Some people, this is what they do. They sit on the floor and they eat. Today, thank God, we're pretty much all rich by the standards of this, because we all have indoor heating and indoor plumbing and cell phones in our pocket that can connect the entire world. So we're pretty much all rich by standing to the Shulchan Aruch. But there were times when Jews lived like this and they were only able to sit on the floor. And sitting on a bench was a luxury. This is Seder night, sit on your bench, luxury. And if all he can do is capable of leaning on his friend's shoulder to the left, this qualifies as demonstrating your leaning, your reclining. We saw this in the Gemara, right? Where there were students in front of their teacher. It was Rabbi Yosef, I think it was, and they were all packed watching their teacher observe the Seder, and they would each lean on their friend's shoulder to the left. So even that, just to show I'm more relaxed than I am in a regular night, and I'm leaning.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't lean on like his own thigh, like on his own self, meaning he shouldn't lean like this. Right? Because now it seems like he's worried. So the guy's leaning to the left like this.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's stressed out, missing the point. So he can lean on his friend's thigh, on his friend's lap, or on his friend's shoulder, but not his own, because that would ruin the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, it doesn't reflect the freedom.
It's pretty ironic.
On the thigh of another person.
Sorry?
It says on the thigh of another person.
Yeah, on his lap. Not all the way flying down. But sorry?
What if I'm sitting beside somebody's wife?
That might reflect a little too much freedom.
I wouldn't dare.
I'm kidding. Halacha tes. We learned this in the Gemara. When a person leans, when he reclines, he shouldn't lean back. Not forward on his face. The Gemara didn't mention, by the way, the face. All right. So let's look at footnote 37. Right. We learned that you shouldn't lean in the Gemara. We learned you shouldn't lean on your back, and we learned you shouldn't lean to your right. Remember that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But here he says not to lean on your back, nor to lean on your face. I mean, not to lean forward either. Psachim 108a, the Gemara we learned, uses footnote 37, uses the term praktan. It says you shouldn't lean praktan. That was the Gemara's language when discussing positions that should not be assumed when reclining at the Seder. Rabbi Levi offers two interpretations of this term. We learned Rashbam's interpretation, and Rashi, which learned that praktan means to lean back. Rabbi Levi, who predates both Rashi and Rashbam, offers two interpretations: either leaning on one's back or leaning on one's face. The Alter Rebbe does not see these two interpretations as mutually exclusive and maintains that neither position is acceptable since neither posture reflects an approach of freedom.
Right.
So in other words, he takes both interpretations of praktan to mean back or forward, not as two different interpretations, one contradictory to the other, but actually praktan can mean either. And therefore both are forbidden.
I can understand leaning on your back. How do you lean on your face?
You lean forward like this. No. Yeah. Okay.
It looks like you're worried.
Exactly. That's why I shouldn't do it. Ella yata al tzida smalis. He should lean towards his left. Yeah. Yamanis and not on his right. Why not on his right? First of all, two reasons, which we pointed this out when we learned the Rashbam's commentary on the Shulchan Aruch on the Gemara. There's actually two reasons not to lean to the right. There's one everybody's familiar with, which is that the issue of you might choke. But there's actually a more primary reason, just like this. He shouldn't lean to his right, because that doesn't demonstrate freedom. Why? He's got to use his right hand to eat. So if he leans on his hand when he's eating, he's crushing himself.
Right.
Ruins the whole point. So he leans to the left where he can use his right hand to eat. But additionally, if he leans to his right, he can come to danger. If he shall get veshet, because the esophagus is on the right side, right? Which one's which? Which one's the chewing one?
The esophagus.
Yeah, so that's on the right, and the esophagus is on the left. And if God forbid, if he leans to the right, then the chewing one is going to be in the wrong place. There's a kind of flap that covers the breathing tube, and when you eat, it is closed. But if you lean to your right, then it'll be automatically opened just by gravity, and God forbid the food will fall in, and you can come into danger. So in addition to not leaning because you can't eat that way, it's also an issue of danger. Now we learned this And here the Alter demonstrates this. Why do you need two reasons? Why not just say because it's not the proper way of freedom? Answer, lefichach, therefore, af mishu iter, even if someone is a lefty, shadar kalechel basmar, he usually uses his left hand. If the only reason for leaning to your left is because you need your right hand to eat, what if I'm left-handed?
Right. Left hand doesn't lean right?
Nope,
Really?
because of the danger.
The danger.
The left-handed person doesn't switch his esophagus and trachea. Right? He should lean to his own to the left, to the actual left, which is the normal left of people.
Right.
Because he might choke. Which is why the Gemara has to give two reasons. First of all, to begin with, it's not considered freedom. It's not the right way to eat. You're stuffing your like this. But additionally, it's an issue of danger. And it's important to add the danger element because if you're left-handed,
Right.
you still got to lean to your left. You're going to be, okay, so you have to use your right hand to eat this time. Sorry, but
Right.
we don't want you choking. That
Right.
takes precedence over whether your hand's going to be squished or not.
That makes sense.
Huh?
That makes sense.
So now we know I have to lean to the left.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what's interesting is the Gemara didn't tell us lean to your left, actually. The Gemara just said, don't do prakton, which is either back or forward, and don't do right side, which left us, the reader, with saying left.
Exactly.
But actually, the Gemara didn't explicitly state lean to your left. Now, presumably the reason is because, we discussed this when we learned the Gemara, presumably the reason is because the Gemara is telling you, you have to demonstrate your freedom. How do you feel comfortable? Do that. How do you feel comfortable reclining? Do that. Oh, but by the way, just when you choose your method of reclining, make sure you don't do right and back because those are no good. Right? Because if the Gemara gave a definitive definition of here's how you should lean to the left, the Gemara would have to go through what constitutes reclining. Like for example, we have with the Shulchan Aruch, when the Shulchan Aruch says to bow by moedim, right? So the Gemara says the halacha discusses what constitutes bowing. How far do you have to go?
Right.
So the answer is you have to go to all your vertebrae are bent a little bit, right? When it comes to leaning, it doesn't say, well, how far is leaning to be considered leaning? This, like how much do I have to go? It doesn't say anything. Because the point is, go to where you can demonstrate how you're comfortable and free. It only tells you what not to do, considering that those don't qualify, leaning back forward or leaning to your right. Leading you with the conclusion that it's left. But the Alter does say, right? It says when you lean, the first line, you shouldn't lean forward or back because that's not considered freedom. Rather, you should lean to your left.
What
He does
about,
add that.
yeah, what about putting up one's legs or feet? That's universal kind of comfort.
At a dinner table, it's a universal sign of
Disrespect.
disrespect. Yeah,
For sure. Right.
So,
right. It's in other words, the state is not a couch experience; it's a table experience.
Right.
But
Okay.
the
Right.
table has to be in such a way that you're demonstrating
So,
a reclined freedom.
right.
Okay, so we're going to continue God willing tomorrow with who has to lean, and then after that we'll get to the Rebbe's commentary on this. Takeaway from all of this is we got to make sure to buy Alan invest in a comfortable.
yeah, I should buy it.
You should get what they call a love chair, right? One of those big.
Yeah.
Get one of those.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nice and comfortable leaning.
Love
Have a wonderful
like
day,
a
Eden.
two-person chair.
That's correct. Basically,